Today marks a year after President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was sworn in as the president. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa celebrates his 75th birthday today. Health sectors approve the use of rapid antigen test in the country. 5 inmates attempt to escape from Bogambara prison. 1 inmate dead. Minor tremor reported in Vigana, Kandy. Second debate on the budget gets underway today.
Very good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime News on TV1. In your top story this afternoon, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is due to address the nation at 8:30 tonight. The address will be telecast live on our sister channel, Sirasa TV. Incidentally, the 18th of November 2020 marks 1 year since President Gotabaya Rajapaksa took office as the 7th executive president of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. This was after the presidential election that was held on the 16th of November 2019. President Rajapaksa took his oath of office within the sacred precincts of the historic Ruanvelli Saya Stupa in Anuradhapura on the 18th of November 2019.
The past 1 year can be considered as a period where several social, economic and political transformations were made by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. During this period, under the guidance of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, a number of important decisions for good governance as well as the common good were implemented, and the President implemented a progressive program during his 1 year rule for an independent economic policy, common law for all, as well as education and the future generations. The role played by the President in strengthening the public service, a national economic policy that protects the local identity, as well as religious and cultural revival is remarkable. While taking instant measures to protect the people from the global pandemic, the head of state took center stage in providing funds for the survival of the domestic industry, providing an allowance of 5,000 rupees for those affected, opening the country for innovations, and provided guidance to increase the capacity of PCR testing in the country. He limited the cabinet to 16 ministers during the caretaker government, while maintaining the cabinet with less than 30 ministers in the current government. Among the steps he took during this period were the conversion of state media to independent institutions, eco-friendly campaigns, as well as the abolition of military guard of honor at the commencement of parliamentary sessions. Among the programs implemented by the President are the program to provide employment to 50,000 graduates and 100,000 low-income earners, and the removal of import duties on essential items such as dal, canned fish, onions and sugar to reduce the cost of living.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa celebrates his 75th birthday today.
An almsgiving was held at the Abhayarama Temple in Narayanpeta in celebration of the 75th birthday of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. An almsgiving for mothers organized on behalf of Prime Minister Rajapaksa's birthday every year was held today for the 18th consecutive year.
He was a great leader who saved this country from a 3-decade war. The great service rendered by Mahinda Rajapaksa is engraved in the hearts of the general public and will never be forgotten. We held an almsgiving to invoke blessings on the Prime Minister to give him strength to continue his service.
After the
almsgiving, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa spoke to journalists.
In my view, if we have the commitment, we can achieve the budget targets. We have achieved tougher targets in the past. I believe that we will go forward.
Born in Veerakatiya on the 18th of November 1945 to former Deputy Speaker the late D.A. Rajapaksa and Dandina Samarasinghe, Percy Mahinda Rajapaksa was the second born of 8 siblings. He received his primary education at Richmond College, Gaul, and received his tertiary education from Nalanda College and Thurston College in Colombo. He was first elected to Parliament in 1970, representing the Beliata electorate as the youngest member of Parliament. Mahinda Rajapaksa, who held several ministerial positions since 1994, later went on to become the opposition leader in 2004. Thereafter, he was elected President of Sri Lanka in the 2005 presidential election. Mahinda Rajapaksa was re-elected as a president in 2010. He has elected president twice, and following the victory of Gotabaya Rajapaksa in the presidential election held in 2019, Mahinda Rajapaksa was appointed Prime Minister. And after winning the general election on the 5th of August, he was re-elected Prime Minister for the 4th time.
The COVID-19 death toll in the country has increased to 66. This was after 5 more COVID-19 related deaths were reported in Sri Lanka yesterday.
2 men aged 65 and 82 years and 3 women aged 69, 71 and 81 passed away due to COVID-19 yesterday. 3 of the deceased passed away while at their homes. The 65-year-old male was a resident of Colombo 10. The Government Information Department said he was admitted to the Punani Treatment Centre after testing positive for COVID-19 and had passed away while receiving treatment at the Valikada Base Hospital. He had died of complications in high blood pressure and triggered by the COVID-19 virus. The 82-year-old resident of Demtakoda had passed away at his residence. According to the Government Information Department, he had died of complications in diabetes due to COVID-19 virus. A 69-year-old woman in Ratnalana and a 71-year-old woman from Kirulapana also have passed away at their residence. The cause of their deaths were identified as high blood pressure and diabetes triggered by COVID-19. An 81-year-old female also passed away due to COVID-19 while receiving treatment at the National Hospital. She was a resident of Colombo 2. Meanwhile, 398 new COVID-19 cases were identified yesterday, taking the total tally of COVID-19 cases in the country to 18,075. The new cases were all linked to the Paliagoda cluster. 5,799 people are receiving treatment at the hospital. 404 people were discharged from the hospital after making a full recovery yesterday. The total recoveries in the country stands at 12,210.
Here are some of the views that were expressed in Parliament today regarding the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country.
This is a pandemic that has affected the whole world. It is not just the responsibility of the ruling party, but the responsibility of all politicians to work towards curbing the spread of COVID-19.
People who worked hard towards curbing the first wave of COVID-19 have quit, especially Dr. Anil Jasinghe, who is not a member of the COVID-19 task force anymore. There are rumors about a statement made by Dr. Jayaruwan Bandara regarding his resignation, followed by a request made by Minister Pavitra Wanyarachi. Did he make that statement? If so, is that true?
Dr.
Anil Jasinghe was promoted as the Secretary of the Environmental Ministry. Moreover, as I mentioned in Parliament the other day, we will continue to invite him to all COVID-19 related meetings in the future as well. The ministry had informed MP Jayaruwan Bandara to serve as a spokesperson to the Ministry of Health. I specifically told him that he will continue to work as a spokesperson since a new Director General was appointed. However, he volunteered to resign from the post.
Meanwhile, the director of the epidemiology unit, Dr. Sudat Samaravira, said that the use of antigen test kits to test for the COVID-19 virus has been approved by the health sector. He made these remarks during a media briefing held in Colombo today.
Yesterday, the Director General of Health Services provided the approval for the rapid testing of antibodies or antigen-based rapid diagnostic test, which will be used for the identified groups from today. And we can get the results in about 30 minutes.
5 prisoners who were placed under quarantine at the Bogambara Old Prison had attempted to escape by jumping over the wall early this morning.
Prisons Commissioner General Tushar Upuldania said 1 inmate had died in the process. 3 others had sustained injuries. The deceased was a 30-year-old resident of Anuradhapura. Meanwhile, a manhunt is underway to apprehend 1 inmate who managed to escape. Tushar Upuldania said the inmates who tried to escape were arrested and imprisoned for drug-related offences.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, issuing an extraordinary gazette, declared the operations at the Sri Lanka Ports Authority as an essential public service. Chairman of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, retired Major General Daya Ratnayaka, said the gazette was issued to ensure that port services will continue uninterrupted amid the COVID-19 pandemic in the country.
An extraordinary gazette has been issued declaring the operations of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority as an essential public service. The gazette was issued to ensure port services will continue without disruption amidst COVID-19. Port services is an essential public service and we cannot allow activities at the port to be hindered due to any reason. This is why we issued a gazette in this regard.
A minor tremor was reported in Digana early this morning. This was confirmed by the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau.
The chairman of the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau, Anura Walpola, said the tremors were experienced at around 9:28 this morning. The tremor was recorded at the Pallekele seismic station and it measured 2.0 on the Richter scale. He added that investigations are underway into the incident, adding that the tremor could have been caused due to a movement of the soft soil layer.
Now, the debate on the second reading of the 2021 appropriation bill began in Parliament today. These were some of the views that were expressed in Parliament.
The 2020 budget speech presented last week, which was more of an essay in my view. Even the central bank has predicted Sri Lanka's economy to shrink by 1.7%. But the budget speech says that Sri Lanka's nominal GDP growth will reach 6.7% this year. Amusing when we compare the GDP forecasts for the other countries. India forecasts their economy to shrink by 10.3%. Even the UK predicts a negative 10%. If we are to reach a negative growth of 1.5%, inflation should be 8%. But the central bank says inflation currently stands at 4%. But the ruling party in their budget speech for 2020 says inflation is minus 8.2%. On the 92nd page, growth is forecasted to reach a negative 1.5%. But on the 6th page, economic growth is 2.2%. You cannot fool the international markets with such misleading strategies. The central bank in their 2019 annual report said the total expenditure was 2.915 trillion rupees, excluding 2019 debt installment repayments. But the 2020 budget speech presented in Parliament last week said total state expenditure was 3.428 trillion rupees. How can there be such a difference? What happened to the 513 billion rupee difference? The budget deficit in 2019 was 6.8%. But according to the 2020 budget speech, the budget deficit is 9.6%. The deficit has increased by 41%. How can this happen? We have learned that a senior officer attached to the Treasury who refused to cooperate to amend these figures had been removed from his position. MP Harsha in his speech accuses the Rajapaksas of what was actually done by them when the opposition was in power. The most misleading budget forecasts were presented during the Yahapalne government. The Yahapalne government misled everyone, claiming it was because of the debt obtained by us that they could not do anything. They sold the Hambantota port for $1.4 billion, claiming they could not settle foreign debt. But none of the proceeds received through the Hambantota port deal was used to pay off foreign debt. Why is that? Because they lied about the debt situation.
පළවෙනි වාර්තාව තමයි නිදාසින් පස්සේ ලංකා ඉතිහාසයේ කිසිම ආණ්ඩුව පටන් ගත්ත වර්ෂයේ ඉඳන් ඉවර වෙන වර්ෂය වෙනකන් අකණ්ඩව ආර්ථික වර්ධන වේගය අඩු වෙලා නැහැ.
And that's a wrap of Lunchtime News on TV1. Of course, to follow details of these stories and more, you can log on to our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk. I'm Charlene Benedict for the Newsfirst team.